I understand you oppose the mobility bond.
I do.
Why is that?
It's not traffic centric. Less than 1/7 is for traffic congestion relief, and that's traffic congestion is public enemy number one in Austin now. We need to do something constructive about it, and the mobility bond just doesn't do that. The traffic portion is a little bit of help, but it's too small. And then the corridor portion of it is, it's going to take net 24 lane miles of roadway away. So it's like, well, we're going to improve traffic with the corridors from going from 4 lanes to 2 lanes.
So what then do we do about traffic in Austin?
I'm proposing an alternative traffic relief and flood control bond that would not raise taxes because it's going to be funded out of our city's current bond capacity of 500 million. 70% of it will be for traffic congestion relief, and another 50 million will include some of the best projects in the mobility bond, such as certain safe sidewalks, safe intersections. And then the flood control part is to balance out the funding across the 10 districts, because South and East Austin have issues with flooding that the city intends to work on in the future anyway.
And so that would be districts that are not in your district. That would be another part of the city, but you're still concerned about making sure those areas get their portion of it.
That's right. That's right. Now 360, this proposed traffic relief bond will convert 360 into a 4-lane limited access freeway the entire length with flyovers at either end. And that's really the only viable long-term solution for 360 and the traffic problems, because the mobility bond allocates 46 million. TxDOT says it's going to cost 110 million to do those 3 overpasses, the one at Westlake, Courtyard, and at Spicewood Springs. But even if TxDOT matches the 46 million, we're at 92 million, that's 18 million short. So what are we going to do? They figure, well, we'll only be able to build 2 of the 3, and then what's going to happen is the traffic bottlenecks, once those are completed, would just be kicked down to the other signaled intersections like Lakewood and the lights down at Barton Creek and so forth.
One thing you hear people say a lot here is, we want Austin to stay Austin. We don't want it to become Houston or San Antonio. Some of the roads you have described sound a lot like something you would find in a big city.
Well, 360, if it's retained at 4 lanes, we'll still have the grass and the median and so forth. And we're not going to have to do frontage roads, because some of the intersections where there would be freeways for interchanges, they can run side roads to those, but it won't be full frontage roads. So 360 will still maintain some of its character, but the reality is the Austin metro area, John, has added 250,000 residents in the last 5 years, and I don't think anybody really expected or planned for this hyper growth. So the reality is we're becoming like Houston and Dallas. It's a tragedy, but we have to face reality.
Somewhat related to this, you have said that you would like to see Uber and Lyft return to the city. Does that even include dropping the provision we have now, the requirement for the fingerprint background check?
No, not exactly. I would like to explore that further, because we're already being fingerprinted for our driver's licenses. So why does the city have to have a whole separate regime of fingerprinting? Can there not be exchange of databases?
One of the big issues, maybe the biggest issue people talk about when they live in Austin, is the affordability, how much it costs to live here. A big portion of that obviously is housing, either rent or just buying a house. How would you go about, or would you go about, making Austin a more affordable place to live?
That's a real tough one, because it's market driven. I think if we try to build houses that are artificially below market price, then eventually there's going to be a windfall to those who sell those houses, or the city is going to have a whole bureaucracy to control that, similar to rent control in New York and Santa Monica, California. Those solutions have not really worked long term. The one thing I think Austin needs to do is quit subsidizing businesses to move here during periods of hyper growth and rapid growth. that would suppress, because it's demand driven.
Mhm.
But we also need to increase the supply. Development services, the department of the city needs to be, the permitting process needs to be streamlined. There have been problems with the way, and inconsistencies in the way permits are approved in the department, and I think they're really, if I'm elected to the city council, I'm gonna do what I can do to clean that department up.
Mhm.
Now, further to your question about affordable housing, this is a very complex and faceted issue. Real estate taxes have gone up 75% in the last 10 years, and that's 3 times the rate of inflation. And our council has been touting the advantages of various things that they've been adding into the budget, such as the mobility bonds, such as composting. But as one constituent of mine says, it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Mhm.
And our city council needs to say no a lot more often to things that are going to increase our taxes.
One of the things you said is that the theme of your campaign is fiscal sanity. I assume that means you think the city is spending too much. So, if you could, where would you cut?
You know, that's a tough one. The budget is like 1,300 pages long. It comes in 2 PDFs. So that's a lot of bedtime reading. And you know, my background is I have a BA in economics from Rice University, an MBA from Stanford, and a PhD in tax and finance from UT. So I'm going to bring a unique set of skills to the council and a sharp pencil for looking at areas that can be cut.
Mhm.
And it's a tough thing, John, to try to balance off the needs of our city. But I'm hoping that I will be able to work effectively with the other members on the council to come up with ways to keep a lid on taxes and move our city forward.
But is there something you can point to where you think we're just wasting money right now as a city?
Well, I think we're paying consulting fees, too much in the way of consulting fees, like $15,000 for the gondola project. Why didn't the promoters of the gondola put up the money for that instead of the taxpayers having to do it?
Mhm.
Code Next, they've added another $2 million to that process. It just seems to be going on and on and on. You know, it doesn't seem like our city council is really managing things effectively. So the studies and the consulting is one area that I would look hard at for cutting.
Mhm. Do you think it's your idea then the current council is kind of willing to spend a little willy-nilly on certain things like that?
It seems to be, right. Now they're looking for solutions, and I know they're struggling. They all want the best for our city. I think that I will bring a set of skills and expertise and training to our council that it has not been on our council in a long time.
Well, Walker, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Best of luck to you.
John, thank you.
Very interesting.